last year, about the same time, we also had a chat about what's happening in TIP. And obviously, for those who don't know, Rob has been speaking a lot in this conference in his role as the head of RAN at AT&T. Now he's speaking as chairman of TIP, which is a great honor for me to have his support and have him on stage. So my name is Kristian Toivo. I'm the executive director of TIP, or Telecom Infra project, which is the official name. And we are a non-profit trade organization working with operators and vendors from all over the world with the purpose of driving new innovative solutions that enable more efficient delivery, deployment, operation of our networks and systems associated with that. And TIP was originally set up to drive openness and disaggregation, which is one of the areas and topics we still focus a lot on. But as times change and the market and technologies evolve, there's been also much more the focus on AI, automation, orchestration, which has been a lot on the agenda over these last days here at Network X as well. So I wanted to kind of spend these few minutes just talking about a few key domains and initiatives TIP is driving and get Rob's reflection on the relevance of those in the context of the industry. So we have 6 initiatives currently in TIP. I won't dive into all of them. I will just take them in a bit of a random order, the way I made my notes. And one area that is going back all the way to the start of TIP and the topic of openness and disaggregation is the optical transport networks. TIP has been working diligently to drive the development and road mapping of disaggregated pluggables for optical transport, but also creating an orchestration management architecture through northbound APIs. And we recently, in the end of last year, started a new initiative regarding low latency Ethernet, obviously inspired by the increased data center needs of connectivity. Rob, how do you see the area of transport network and the work that is being in TIP? Could you reflect a bit on that?
Maybe just 2 things, and I'll zoom back out to something you said a minute ago, and I think it's an important theme overall for the industry. It's like often we wonder, why do we go open? Why do we disaggregate? And there's an obsession over TCO, choice points. I get to choose a diversity of vendors. I get to get a better outcome potentially from a capital perspective. But then, of course, I increase operational complexity potentially when I go open and I go disaggregated. But the driver that we've been talking about for quite a long time of why in the world do we go open and disaggregated is simple. Anybody want to guess why? We want programmable networks. We want to democratize the access to the networks and allow application providers to come in and help innovate and create new value streams for us. And that really comes back to what are the 2 areas that are the most interesting right now. And again, building off your comment, it's artificial intelligence and it's automation. To bring artificial intelligence or automation at scale in the network, to create programmable platforms that are actually not bespoke, requires us to move to open and disaggregated networks. And that is a challenge for both big and small operators. The vision and the mission of TIP is to make sure that both big and small operators have a seat at the table in driving requirements for our vendors and democratize that.
Fantastic. And that brings me right on to the next initiative. So TIP was also very much and still is associated with Open RAN, but we have moved on a bit in our focus. And our focus right now, to a large extent in that space, is enabling the automation and programmability. Basically, we have a mission of driving portability of our apps across different platforms, which is obviously a topic Rob has been talking about. Latest yesterday, I heard him mentioning that. And AT&T is also one of the co-chairs in that group of TIP. How do you see the development of the whole RAP ecosystem, and what is the role of doing it as a community initiative?
I think it's important that we establish, again, a level playing field for the application creators, providers that are developing our apps. And wearing an AT&T cap for a second, we've done our best to create an environment for onboarding applications, third-party applications, and starting to still simplify and streamline the process of how this should work. We know we need an environment which is AT&T specific, but we also think that finally the value of TIP is in creating an opportunity to create other places where this can happen, whether it's right here in Dallas at Accord, or it's other labs around the world that will ultimately give the application providers access to data, access to environments and configurations that look like an operator's environment. Otherwise, it's very difficult for them to get through the onboarding exercise in any typical operator. So this is, from my perspective, table stakes to get the application providers in a space where they can contribute. And what we see is that if you make the data available, if you make the opportunity available, you just can get amazed by what the application providers can come up with in terms of applications. Things that I could not imagine years ago or 2 years ago, where we thought the real purpose of these platforms was essentially to extend self-optimizing network behavior, which we've seen developed over the last 10, 15 years. We've moved aggressively into saying, hey, we can have platforms, we can have platforms which automate the deployment, the provisioning, the management of new network elements. So without having to build a new EMS, we can bring in a third-party radio from a provider, and we're doing that with Onefinity today at AT&T. But there are a variety of other use cases that are in place, including the orchestration automation of Cloud RAN, interactions with non-terrestrial networks. And in many cases, we have startups involved in this because the startups are able to contribute. But it also accelerates, I think, the opportunities for the operators themselves to write their own applications, especially when you start thinking about using artificial intelligence itself. And this is not something that the domain vendors were very focused on. But again, startups, like one who's participating in TIP called IRA, is providing a capability for somebody to take business logic today and immediately generate an RAP. And they're not alone. There are others that are also now starting to do this as well. I think there's ZyncWorks and others that are really, starting to drive this ecosystem in a different way and make the development of RAPs frictionless.
Yeah. I mean, that really is at the heart of what TIP is doing, enabling also smaller and different players to engage, and it drives towards that programmability. Last thing I want to touch upon, because we are soon going to be joined by colleagues here on the stage, is a very different initiative, but it actually links back to what we've been talking about, at least at the later stage. It's the video QoE that we just launched in Barcelona at the Congress. So this is an initiative where we have been bringing in content and application providers, the well-known, the Metas and the YouTubes and likes, to work together with operators to try to figure out the best way of ensuring within the limits of available capacity the optimal quality of experience when consuming video. How do you see that as an area, so to say, that a community can drive forward?
I'll give kind of first the AT&T view of why we supported it and why we encouraged it. I think it's not a well-kept secret that you don't get 8K video to your phone. So how in the world does that happen, that an application provider ultimately provides a video stream back to your phone or other appliance, and it's shaped for the link? Well, today, every operator is working bilaterally with a variety of caps, YouTube, TikTok, whoever, working with a variety of them to try to shape the traffic so it fits in the pipe. Yeah. And it's resilient, so that you get good video wherever you are, as opposed to great video in 1% of the network. So from that perspective, we saw that we were spending and investing a lot of effort in these bilateral conversations. We got a lot of feedback from other operators through TM Forum and other places that they wanted to and add some attempt to unify this. But I think what happens and what's different about TIP is it puts the engineers together to drive a requirements discussion, drive blueprints, and moves the requirements from the abstract phase into something which is concrete and real. And we see this now with the things that have been developed specifically in the context of other open disaggregated platforms. So now we move, I think, aggressively in the software space. So it creates a place where You can now have the application providers talk and share openly about what they're doing to shape the traffic, to be able to fit and make it resilient across a wireless network. So they build once and it scales out. At the same time, the operators also benefit from this, both big and small. And so finally, we know that we're changing the quality of experience and making additional bandwidth available so that we can get ready for the next set of applications, which we heard a lot about in the last 2 days.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think we are out of time in this first chat. Thanks, Rob, for that.